With the situation in Ukraine, it's a bit hard for the Ukrainian people. It is ultimately up to them and the government what is going to be done with this Russian incursion into the separatist regions. The issue for Ukraine is that if it goes to war with Russia, it's going to take heavy casualties and it has to depend on its allies in order to be able to successfully defend itself, if even success can be brought in that defense. But at the same time, if success is going to be brought, it's going to have to turn into an offensive because it could turn into a major war. So right now for Ukraine, they got a tough decision to make. And because the West has chosen to put in more sanctions rather than actually firmly defend its ally, that is the Ukraine, what could potentially happen is that Ukraine may just capitulate to the Russian pressure. And that means that Ukraine will not join NATO, and in fact might just meet the demands of everything Russia wants the Ukraine to do. And that would be a big blow to NATO. That would be a big blow to the Western push. But at the same time, with the current events that we are seeing right now in Europe and North America, what's really just nowadays is the Ukraine trying to look for peace and trying to do things the proper way with diplomacy. Is it really a negative thing? No, I believe that capitulation, if sanctions keep just being put in without any action, without any actual firm defense of the Ukrainian people, then capitulation might be the best situation for them. They don't want to get their cities bombed. They don't want to go into a military conflict that could end up in such loss of life. So I can see them actually giving in to Russian demands and capitulating. With that said, you have to really look at what Ukrainian people are actually dealing with right now. The West is basically using them as a pawn, inviting Russia in for an invasion. Well, the West right now can't get their business straight. They're abusing their own people. Right now, what has happened in my country, Canada, has shown that we already are basically in a dictatorship. And who's the good guy here? That is a very deep moral blow. It is showing that we can't trust anybody. And the Ukrainian people share way more with Russia than they share with NATO. And if NATO is just using them as a pawn, well, what we are being currently controlled by in the West is using our people as a pawn, abusing us, taking all our democracy, taking all our justice away, and just basically imposing a tyranny. What benefit does Ukraine have in staying loyal to an ally that will not even defend the Ukraine? Those are very serious questions right now for both Russian and Ukrainian people and anyone who could be affected by this conflict. Yes, at home here in the West, our own people are losing their trust in our governments. Our governments are being tyrannical, they're being annoying, disrespectful. And when I say annoying, meaning that they're immature, it's becoming stupid. We don't trust our government. They're doing such stupid, immature things that seem so naive, so ridiculous. And our leaders are basically just people who are partying, just taking advantage of the people, disparaging the people, treating people like absolute garbage, manipulating people, manipulating our youth, and talking about having a fourth industrial revolution, talking about changing the people themselves, taking away all culture, ruining religion, ruining the way we eat. They're actually ruining the way we eat, the way we live, everything. The majority of us cannot afford to even live. Well, they're talking about population control. You have insane nut jobs like Bill Gates and the World Economical Forum and all the people that are controlled by this push, just absolutely just destroying our trust in our very own system. And I can just imagine for the Ukrainian people, why in the hell would they want to join with NATO when they can simply just join with Russia? It's very hard for me to say that, but in the current times that we are in, why in the heck would they want to join NATO if NATO doesn't even defend them, doesn't even send them the weaponry that they need to defend themselves? When they ask for it, they say, hey, we're willing to defend ourselves. And NATO just says, okay, just hold on. No. Russian troops are currently in those separatist regions causing havoc. And who knows what the story that Russia's going to turn out after all this is said and done, or while it's happening. It's just going to turn out to be what? Just a bunch of chaos, just a bunch of propaganda. And what benefit do the Ukrainian people have actually going into a full conflict with Russia if their ally with NATO is absolutely useless to them? Just sanctions are being put in by leaders of our country who are immature people who don't have any respect for their own people. How in the heck are they going to respect the Ukrainian people in these situations? Like I said, it's really hard for me to say this. I am from the West. But at the same time, why would I want to be drafted in my communities, all our resources be put into a conflict with Russia if this is the way that things are playing out? They're putting in sanctions when they should be putting in troops. They should be putting heavy defenses to deter Russia's incursions. But they do not. So that is showing that the West is basically just using the Ukraine as a pawn, which is just going to cost the Ukrainian people nothing but havoc and death and misery, and as well as on the Russian invading forces. It's going to be an absolute mess. So the moral compass is a big one with this, but at the same time, common sense, the facts, what benefit is had. It's just basically pointing that the West is not going to defend Ukraine. It's just basically doing a standoff with Russia, another type of Cold War, and it's just ridiculous. It's just putting our people at home at risk in emergency acts and bad leaders who have bad intentions towards our people, just getting more power with the scare that we might go to war with Russia. Why do we need this? Why does anyone need this right now? While these people are talking about population control and whatnot, it's just a trick. And I believe that none of us need that. Not do I just believe it, but I am pretty sure that none of us need that. And everybody who understands common sense, understands any form of strategy, will understand that this is just ridiculous. I feel for the Ukrainian people. I say they do not capitulate, but if they are not going to be defended, what justice is going to be had in that? Just a bunch of innocent people are going to lose their lives. A bunch of warriors are going to go to war over the most stupidest reasons, because no government right now can get it straight. And here's the Ukrainian people and all our populations right now around the world having to deal with these leaders, this awful leadership. We are caught in the middle. What benefit does it really have? Big question mark.